Hi, this is Russ Cohen. The following video will give you a brief introduction to the ecological values of trees in the river and how paddlers can avoid harming those values. Please secure the permission of adjacent landowners and the local conservation commission before cutting or removing trees from the river.
Here we are on the Squannacook River in Townsend, and we're paddling along, interacting with riverine vegetation and evaluating it to see if anything needs to be done to render the river safer for paddlers and without in any way adversely affecting the function of the vegetation for the riverine organisms and habitats. First obstruction in the river is a tree that's fallen completely across the river. And at this river level, it looks like we can squeeze underneath it, but at a higher river level, not only would that be very difficult, if not impossible, but the speed of the current might actually pin a boat against the log and flip it over. So this tree, although it may be an annoyance and hazard for paddlers, it actually is performing several ecological functions. Because it goes all the way across the river, it makes an excellent bridge for wildlife to cross, let's say a bobcat. And it's also creating an excellent basking opportunity for snakes and turtles and perching for birds and so on. And so from a paddler's perspective, why it might seem annoying to have to portage around this thing, from a wildlife perspective and also from a human perspective and wanting to cross the river on top of a log without having to swim the river, this may be a very happy circumstance to have this log go completely across the way it does. We felt like we wanted to err on the side of paddler safety. Looks like we could prune the river right end of the tree for about 3 or 4 feet just to allow a boat to squeeze through. You do lose the functionality of having a complete bridge across, but maybe in that last 3 feet, animals or even people can make that final jump across, and so having it still function from that perspective.
I agree with that. I think that's perfect. This section right here, that's the outer curve of the river. The water tends to go toward that edge, but I think this is wide enough that, like, when the current is really strong, it's not pulling you into that necessarily. If that was an issue, that might be something to think about.
Ahead of us, there are a few different examples of logs in the river. And these are all adding valuable ecological surfaces to the river without in any way impeding paddler safety or enjoyment. So this is a great example of the kind of structure that provides cover for the fish, perches for the birds, basking areas for snakes and turtles, and so on. And it's bringing a lot of niches, habitat niches for the wildlife, which is a major reason why people come and paddle on rivers.
I think as it is right now, we probably could leave it that way. If the water was a little higher for boaters, I would take a lopper and take some of the lowest branches off that are hanging down the water so paddlers could get through without getting snagged.
As we move through this section of river, we've encountered a spot where a large tree was cut, and you can see the stump protruding from the bank right here. And I think that this was a sensible decision for paddler safety reasons, because you can see right in front of the trunk is exactly where the main current is going through. They did leave the stump sticking out of the bank, which is good, so animals can still use that for perching and basking and so on. And they left the root wad in the bank where it's adding some stability, so that's good as well.
At this site, a tree's fallen down and is high enough that if you took off the one branch, you could get through, but the current really takes you into the tree. So as a whitewater paddler, I would recommend taking off a one branch, and then I would go right through it. But if I was taking novice paddlers out, I would recommend that they portage this as is now.
This tree is alive, and so if we cut it, we kill the tree. And so I'd like to avoid that if we can. There are some branches underneath the main trunk that are the major concern for the paddler safety. What we have to do first is to make sure that those branches aren't propping up the trunk and keeping it up, because if they were and we took them out, the trunk could sink lower and provide even more of an obstruction. But in this case, it looks like the tree is going to stay where it is even if we take those lower branches out, and so that would facilitate the paddler safety without degrading the tree's value it's bringing to the river and to the riverine organism. Here we have an enormous pine tree that's fallen completely across the river. And what happens when you have a tree like this is that floating debris like coffee cups and water bottles and so on will often accumulate behind structures like this. And sometimes people are tempted to take them out because they're accumulating trash, but to me that's treating the symptom and not the cause of the problem. In this case, we've got a great opportunity to do some judicious pruning of this tree while retaining its value to the river and to animal and human visitors to the river. This tree is creating a beautiful arched natural bridge across the water, which is a big enough bridge that people could walk across it as well as bobcats and other animals. We can leave that upper branch, the one that's higher up, which is allowing plenty of room for the paddlers to go through, and we can clean out some of the lower branch, enough for the paddlers to paddle through without in any way hurting the integrity of the structure or its ecological significance.
I agree here about making a pathway for paddlers to go through. I think a feature like this makes it fun for paddlers to paddle on this river. You're exploring and you have things to move around and to go under. That's always fun when you're out paddling, especially with kids.